Just above the spine is the human brain's most ancient part. The want center kept our ancestors alive when food ran out. Now, it's Jean-Luc Jossua's only hope of escaping death. In animals, this part of the brain evolved around the time of the dinosaurs, before mammals existed. It's hardwired to beat starvation. For 3 days, Jean-Luc has been trapped underground. He hasn't had a morsel to eat. He doesn't know it, but his brain is changing how his body functions and how he behaves.
There are a couple of different brain centers that regulate feeding behavior as well as hunger. They're in different parts of the central part of the brain called the hypothalamus. And in that part of the brain, you're really driven to seek out food, to eat almost anything, to try to stop yourself from starving to death.
To drive Jean-Luc's search for food, his brain first releases a hormone, orexin. Orexin comes in tiny doses, but it has a profound effect. This hormone makes us more alert, improves our muscle efficiency, making us better hunters. It even sharpens our problem-solving skills. For days, Jean-Luc scours the caves. He finds water, but nothing to eat. He starts to fear the worst.
Even if, when I had a little hope, I thought obsessively what would happen over the last few days, or the last hours before dying. It was a big question. How I would die. Was it going to be cold or hunger, or... It was a question that I always had in my head.
Sure that he's doomed, he records a message. But as hope fades, Jean-Luc's brain switches strategy to help him survive with no food. With his fuel stores depleted, his body becomes even more efficient. It makes him slow down. Now, his muscles use less energy. So do all his internal organs. New cells grow more slowly. Non-essentials, fingernails, toenails, hair, hardly grow at all. Jean-Luc is entering a survival state that evolved to keep starving animals alive until they could get to food. This enforced efficiency, which kicks in when we're at our limit, may have bigger implications. Some say it could help us all live longer. In a recent trial, researchers compared semi-starved rats to those fed a normal diet. Surprisingly, the less the rats ate, the longer they lived. Some animals' lifespans doubled. Based on these findings, some people drastically cut their food intake, hoping to live longer. The average American adult consumes almost 4,000 calories a day. Brian Delaney eats half that. He's trying to fool his brain into staying in super efficient starvation mode.
Right now, I take in about 1,950 calories per day. At the most strict, I was eating about 1,650 calories per day.
If the theory holds, this could slow the aging process. It seems to work. When people who slash their caloric intake were compared with normal eaters, the dieters' hearts resembled those of much younger people.
The heart is actually rejuvenated by 10 or 15 years. We know that calorie restriction does slow aging and in some respects even reverse it in humans.
Reducing food intake may help people like Brian live longer. Right now, a starved brain is keeping Jean-Luc Jossua alive. But he's gone 3 weeks without food, more than even his slowed metabolism can stand. Jean-Luc's brain adopts a final, desperate plan. His brain orders Jean-Luc's body to eat itself. A hormone from his brain signals his liver, triggering the release of chemicals. These chemicals have already broken down body fat. Now, they start ripping apart protein, Jean-Luc's muscles, a last-ditch source of energy.
So a typical non-obese individual would have 130,000 to 160,000 calories stored as fat. Only about 54,000 calories stored in muscle. And only half of that 54,000 calories is available for energy, because once you've lost half of the protein in your body, it's no longer compatible with life.
Simply speaking, when your body consumes half your muscle cells, the game is up. But a brain desperate for fuel holds nothing sacred. It will even sanction burning heart muscle to keep itself going.
So you have to start eating the protein in your body, literally eating it up to produce the sugar that's needed by the brain and the red blood cell.
Miraculously for Jean-Luc, his brain's high-risk strategy pays off. 35 days after he was trapped, searchers find him only 200 yards from the cave mouth. His ordeal cost him over 40 pounds in fat and muscle, but his brain is just fine.
Now that I look back at it, I think that everyone has a survival instinct. But it's just when one faces a situation like this that one really discovers it.